Okay, good to vach. So I want to talk to you guys tonight about a topic that I was asked about. I think at this point we definitely can branch off onto some more contemporary applicable topics. So we should do that. We actually, if you count up the amount of weeks given off Shabbosim, and I might not be able to be here every week, of night Seder Matzei Shabbos, we actually don't have that many left. I definitely want to cover some topics, especially one that I was asked about. So the topic that I want to cover tonight with you is an overview on the proper hashkafa attitude perspectives from a Jewish perspective on music. And part of the reason why I want to cover this topic with you is because it's a topic that is very applicable to most guys your age. I get asked it every year, and it's something which has pretty significant ramifications. And that's really where I want to start with you in talking about this topic. We know that in Bereshis we are told that the son of Lemech discovered music. And Rashi says that he used that music. What was the first instance of music used for? Avodah Zarah. For worshipping Avodah Zarah. Not really such a good start. The Malbim argues with Rashi and says, what was that music used for? He used it for Taivas Nashim, to seduce and attract women for inappropriate things. That's what he used music for. So, music really doesn't have its beginnings in the most nice areas. However, as we're going to talk about, of course, it is something that can be used for amazing things and is used for amazing things, and we do that all the time. So I want to talk to you really about what I see as different madregos in music, different levels in terms of what could or should be listened to when it comes to music. And I think it's a pretty balanced approach. For sure, at the end, we can take questions. And obviously, there's going to be questions potentially about very specific examples of music and where they fall along these different levels that I'm going to describe. But this is an important topic. So let's start. One other point of introduction is that it's important to recognize that the reason why music has a power, I mean, there are many reasons, maybe there are even spiritual reasons for it, but let's try to stay within the revealed knowledges of the world, the sciences, etc. Music naturally has a power over a person. In fact, you can just think to yourself about how when you listen to a song, you often randomly find yourself all of a sudden humming the song. And you're not listening to it. It's a later time, could be hours later, and you're humming. Well, where did that come from? The song was actually playing itself over and over and over and over and over again in the back of your mind. And that song just has a koach, it has a power to be able to do that, to get stuck in your mind, to be playing itself over. And so we have to really take seriously what positive or negative influences can music have on us, because much like some styles of brainwashing are, let's say, they say, I have no idea if it's true, about old-time Russian brainwashing tactics, where they would take the spies and they would lock them up, and they would say, a suspected spy, and they say, you're a spy. And he'd say, no, I'm really not. You have a mistaken identity. And they would make sure that he was tied up and he couldn't cover his ears, and they would just scream at him or put a recording on, you're a spy, you're a spy, you're a spy. 24 hours a day, eventually the guy actually starts to say he's a spy. The repetition of a message is actually something that can ultimately influence a person and what he actually believes and who he becomes. And so we have to recognize that koach, that psychological power that repetition has, and music is one of the most amazingly powerful tools along these lines in terms of the repetition. You listen to the same song over again, and even when you're not listening to it, it has a tendency to play itself over and over and over again in your mind. So what I think is the most basic madrega that every single person wanting to be a basic Ben Torah should aspire to reach when it comes to what not to listen to, is what I think we would call as absolutely usher to listen to. I think every madrega above this, there's what to argue about, whether it's usher and maybe it's just more of a sensitivity, but I think the most basic fundamental piece would be this. And that is, let's first take Kol Isha and put that on the side, because obviously there are machlokesim and poskim about when you can't see her, whether she's alive or not, and all different types of conditions. We're not going to get into that tonight. And that's something that you can ask your personal Rav to get hadrach on, to get a psak on, whether kol isha over the radio or over a recording is something that's usher or not. If it is, then it certainly would fall into this first category of staying away from what we would absolutely define as usher. And so this category would be any situation where the words of the song have either curse words or words of romance and love and those types of topics, or words of avodah zarah. Words of avodah zarah are pretty rare. Curse words and words of romance are quite common in popular secular music. You turn on any popular radio station and you're walking around in the stores and the malls and stuff like that. Generally, the songs, even if they try to get rid of the curse words to an extent, generally they're almost always about love and romance, and there's a very simple reason for that. That's one of the most powerful emotions in the world. Music is an expression of emotion, and so more naturally, such things will be sung about. It's much more likely, even without love and romance between a man and a woman. Let's talk about two topics: what I ate for supper tonight, and that I had a baby boy. So I'm not saying I did. I'm just saying, let's say those two topics. So one is going to be much more probable to be sung about, to be made into a song than the other, because song is an expression of emotion, a very powerful expression of emotion. So we're not going to probably be too emotional about, even though sometimes at night in the dorms it does become a little bit of an emotional thing, what you're going to order from whichever place, and whether there's still time for them to deliver. But when we talk about instead of having a child, that's something that's very emotional, and that's something which is much more likely to be made into a song. So it's an expression of emotion. And therefore, many, many, many songs are going to be talking about feelings that a man has for a woman, that a woman has for a man, and such types of categories of topics, and whether it's good feelings or heartache feelings or whatever it is in that category, that is something which is defined in the Shulchan Aruch as divrei cheshek. It's something which is usher to listen to, and so that's something that really should be avoided. We should try not to do averos in life, and before we even get into sensitivities of which music yes, which music no, we have to first get beyond what's usher. Curse words as well. Nivel peh is an isser. It's an isser to speak. It's an isser to listen to, especially when you're choosing to listen to it. I think all of these things are much more relaxed if you happen to be in a store or you happen to be in someone else's car and there's no way for you to control it. I'm not saying that you necessarily have to avoid a store. Maybe if you go to the store and you think to yourself, oh great, this song is on, let me spend some extra time in the store in order to listen to it. Okay, but assuming that you're just going to shop and it happens to be in the background and it's something that really has nothing to do with your kavanah whatsoever, I think there's much more leeway there to talk about it not being a potential isser. But let's talk about what you're actually choosing to push play on your device to listen to. These things would be usser. So we have to understand what exactly are these songs talking about. And this is a very important point. This makes absolutely no difference whether the singer is Jewish or Goyish. I think it's a little bit of an outdated term to talk about Goyish music and Jewish music. Nowadays, Jewish music and its style is becoming much more and more and more similar to Goyish music. And in terms of the style of song, we might get to a later madrega, which I don't think is Isser v'Heter anymore. Maybe it's a nice sensitivity. But certainly when it comes to Isser v'Heter, if you have, let's say, a guy, let's make a simple case first. A guy playing an instrumental piece of guitar. And a Jew playing an instrumental piece of guitar. You listen to them, you can't tell which one's Jewish, which one's Goyish. You have no idea. Is there one Aser, one Mutter? Again, are there sensitivities that we'll get to later? Maybe. But is one Aser, one Mutter? No. They're both equally Mutter. What if they're both singing a song about taking a walk through a park and sitting on a bench? And that's the idea of the song. It's no romance, no love, nothing like that, no avodah zarah, no nivel peh. We're not dealing with kol isha, so there's no Isser. They're equal. As far as Isser v'Heter is concerned, they are equal. So it really has nothing to do with, is it being written by and sung by a guy or a Jew. Really, when it comes to this first basic madrega that I think everyone, obviously I think there are going to be some people in this room that should be expected them to reach a little bit higher madregas, and they're already holding by those higher madregas, and that's a beautiful thing. I don't want to knock that down at all. But I think the common denominator that everyone should strive to at least be at is not listening to such songs. And a lot of popular music out there, unfortunately, is included in this category. But there is plenty. Specific bands that guys have showed me over the years that often do not curse or talk about love topics. Sometimes those bands are Christian bands, which you have to be careful. Are they talking about ideas of Avodah Zarah? Are they talking about, worshiping Yashka and things like that? So then you're right. Then there might be that other possibility. But there definitely are bands that are less prone to these Dvarim Asurim. There definitely are specific songs here and that you can find. But I always like to tell this story. The first year that I was working here in Ner Yisrael, and I was giving this Chabura over to the 10th grade, some 10th grade Bachrim, going back 6 or 7 years, came to my apartment on Yeshiva Lane. And they said, they first told me they want to show me a song that they feel, based on what I said, would be mutter to listen to. And they were like all surprised. They were thinking that they would get me into a corner and I would back down. So they came to my apartment. I put it on my stereo and we listened to the song. It was a man singing. Again, it was something along the lines of, again, taking this walk through the park or something like that. It was a song about pretty much nothingness, and it was fine. And there was nothing usher about it, and it was a little bit catchy, and I told them, yeah, that's mutter, fine. So they were all surprised, and they said, okay, they see that I'm standing behind my words, and then I said to them, what is it, an iPod? Yeah. How many songs do you have on that? 3,000, about. Okay, great. Show me another one. No, this was the one that we wanted to show you, we're not sure. So, one out of 3,000 is not really such good odds. And it definitely reflects what generally is out there, unfortunately. But even for people who get tired or feel that there's not enough selection, this is changing as we speak. But even for people who feel that they get tired from the classic Jewish style and from the lack of selection out there in Jewish music, you can be careful to choose songs that are not usher, even within Goyish music. And you should, and you really must. And like I said before, the curse words and the talks of romance and all these things make an impact on you. It's not just that it's usher, it also makes an impact on you. The messages that you received, if they're just neutral messages about walking around, okay, so then it has no positive and no negative influence on you. But once it's a negative, impactful message, and certainly things that are within the category of being usher are included in this, it really over time does impact the way that you think, the way that you act, the way that you talk. It impacts a person. And you want to be careful with that. So that's really Madrega number 1. Okay. I'll add as a side point, it goes without saying that when there's video along with the music going on, so that not only is it being absorbed by your ears, but by your eyes as well, it's certainly going to have even more of an impact, and you have to be extra, extra careful with that. But here we are in the category of what's usher, what's mutter, so I guess what I would add then is even what's mutter, recognize that if you're watching a video to that song and there's pretzis and things like that in the video, that's obviously a whole separate isser. That you have to be careful with, of course. Even if they bleep out a curse word, let's say it's not about love, it's not kolish, no issue with kolish, all the other things, and they bleep it out, so it's just like a quick pause or it's like an actual beep or whatever they do. Still, I don't know if we could technically say that it's usher, but I hear a strong argument to say that even that would be usher. And that's often the issue on the radio. And the reason for that is because everyone, oftentimes, even when they pause it, from what I've heard, the first sound of the word is even still there. So the first letter of the word, let's call it. And so you basically, what this word is. It might even perfectly rhyme with the next stanza of the song. You know what the word is. And so it essentially was spoken in your mind, despite the fact that you didn't hear it through the music. And the whole idea here is that you don't want to be having these words and these messages swirling around your mind, and in a repetitious way like music has the power to do. So I think for sure, even if it's beeped out, it would be worthwhile to stay away from. Can I say for sure that I'm confident that it's usher? No, but I think there's a strong argument to be made that if it's obvious what that word is, and they shouldn't actually say it, that would be in fact usher, and it certainly makes sense to stay away from that, and it's included in this first category. Okay. The second category that I want to present to you is music where, there's an obvious example of this nowadays, but it's music where, let's say, Jews or Goyim decide to get together and do that song, that same song that has bad words or curse words or talks about love, and just put different words to it. So it's the exact same song, same tune, but different words. And those words are not usher to listen to. So what now? Or just the tune. How about just listening to the tune without any words to it at all? If someone replays it, is that usher or not? So for this we need to understand a tshuva from Rav Ovadia Yosef. He says that when it comes to using tunes of music in davening, so listen to what we're talking about. We're talking about even in davening, for Kedusha and for Kaddish, for different parts of davening, you're using tunes. Okay, that's a chashava part of when we would use a tune. He says, no problem. You can use any Goyish tune you want. No problem at all. Doesn't matter what the words were. And he says, in fact, many other people say, in fact, some of the very classic tunes that we do use were from very Prusta Russian marching songs, army songs. And that's what we're used. And we just take the tunes and we apply them. Now, what's going on over here? The answer is, the tune itself has nothing usher about it. It's the words that were usher, not the tune. It's the words that were usher, not the person who sang it. Not the tune, the words. And now the words are no longer there. In fact, we're using davening, beautiful words to it. However, and this is an extremely important condition, it depends, and this is similar to what I just said about the beeping out, it depends on the people listening, not knowing the original words. Because as soon as in the middle of davening especially, but even not, you hear that tune, and you hear these other words, which are fine, but you're thinking about all the real words, and therefore maybe it's a love topic or curse words or whatever's usher, let's say, that's a big problem and potentially usher, like we said before. Because even though you're not hearing the words, it's making you basically think about those topics and those words, which is a problem. And so that's something which, when it comes to oftentimes I get asked about, let's say, the Maccabees, which would be an example of this. So again, it really makes a big difference whether you're aware of the original words and song or not. In fact, somebody who is not, it would be much less problematic to listen to those types of things. Is it better to listen to that than to the original song? Of course. One, you're actually listening to the word, and one not. But again, I think it's for sure important to stay away from songs that are going to make you think about all those bad, negatively influencing concepts and curse words. And a person should try to stay away from them. And there's a strong argument to be made that it might even be usher if you're really thinking about those songs. So that's the second category, slightly above that first category. The third category, I think, is Goyish music, where the words are not bad. There's no love, no curse words, nothing like that at all, no avodah zarah, and it's sung by a guy, produced, written, sung by a guy. So this category, I think, is completely mutter. I do think that there is something nice about using music for a positive. And unless the song is something inspirational, it's some type of inspirational message, if it's just a neutral, random, meaningless topic, useless topic about some guy walking around, then you could be listening to music that might have psukim or tehillim or other good messages in it, and those songs are positively influencing you, especially using that koach of music where you're all of a sudden randomly, mindlessly humming what? Words of tehillim. That's good, as opposed to the guy who was walking around the park. So there's definitely a huge advantage to someone saying, even though it's not usher, I'm going to restrict myself to listen to songs that talk about and have words of Torah and Tehillim and Tefillah and these things, and it actually can then be a positive influence on the person and can be entertaining and enjoyable all at the same time. And more styles and varieties out there as we go along here in today's day and age. What happens if it's a song where you don't understand the words? It's in a different language. So I think that would fall again into the category of just my own svara of you're not hearing any curse words, you're not hearing any love topics, you really have no idea what the words mean. So it would be potentially mutter, but at the same time, oftentimes, even just, and this gets into the fourth category, oftentimes there's songs where the intention of just the beat and the style of the music is really meant. One time, guys came over to my apartment and they showed me a song. They said it's really not Kol Isha, because it's really the whole computer animated thing to the voice, and they break it up, and they a whole introduction they gave me on it, and they played a little bit of it for me, and I'm like, this music is obviously just meant to make a person just go out of control. I mean, it's not relaxing at all, and it's not even just like fun, it's like out of control. And they said, oh, it's so funny you said that, this song is actually called Out of Control. So obviously certain styles of the actual beats and the music itself also can be recognized. Some of them can conjure up feelings of anger and out of controlness, which is not a good thing. Rather, using music for fun, for simcha, for relaxation on the other end of the spectrum. Those are the types of songs that we'd want to listen to, and that's something to take into account as well. The final category is music where you really have nice words of Tehillim. So, by the way, that other category where it's out of control style beats and all of that, that could be with words of Torah and Tehillim too. You have to understand, there's a maila in listening to nice melodies as opposed to out of control melodies. And everyone's going to have a slightly different definition, but I'm sure there's some extreme at which we would all agree. And so, in that case, maybe I'd even say it's better, maybe, to listen to a relaxing melody sung by a guy that has no bad words at all, than a melody that makes a person get all angry or out of control and do bad things, maybe even because of it, or make bad decisions that happen to be sung by a Jew with maybe even Jewish words. Something to think about. The final category, the highest madrega, is songs sung by a Jew with good messages, with good words, with words of Torah and Tehillim, as I mentioned before, making a good positive hashpah and influence on a person. And these are things that for sure are worthwhile to listen to, because they can relax us in the right way, they can motivate us in the right way. And again, you have those positive messages of Torah repeating in your mind. I'll end off with one last quick point, and that is, the Gra talks about, from a spiritual, Kabbalistic perspective, that which is created by a goy, whatever a person creates, a piece of that person goes into that object. So he literally talks about even a table, that there's a milah to use. In Evan Shlema, he talks about a milah to use a table constructed by the Jew, then constructed by a goy. The reason why I end this as like a kind of note at the end of my presentation is because I think it is beyond most people nowadays. I don't think most people are thinking about who made my table, and let me make sure to get it made by a Jew. So, but according to that Kabbalistic perspective, there would again be for sure sensitivity, a reason to consider listening to only songs created by and sung by Jews, because it's coming from a person with a Yiddish neshama, as opposed to a person who does not have that extra level of spirituality, let's call it, that exists in a Yiddish neshama. So again, there is something to be said for it from a Kabbalistic perspective, but I don't really understand that fully. It's Torah's Nistar. From the Torah's Nigla perspective, I think we have these madregas, and to sum it up, the first madrega that I think everyone is a common denominator for everyone. I think for those who are on the higher madregas, good for them, and you should continue to be that way, and it's something to compliment and to be proud of and to look up to. But the chol hapachas, the common denominator for everyone, is not to listen to songs that have curse words, words of romance and love, words of avodah zarah in them, which are usher to listen to. And I think that we can, even within Jewish music, but certainly within the whole spectrum of music, find songs that are not going to be usher for us to listen to. Okay, I know we're late, so I'm going to have anyone who has any questions, please come up to the desk and I'll take questions here.